Introduction. We would begin by introducing ourselves to the participants in the role of zookeepers. We would do this by entering the space and asking all of the students to sit together on the floor. We would then sit on chairs facing the participants and introduce ourselves by saying, "I am Melissa and my zookeeper name is Kangaroo." I might then ask the students if they are familiar with the animal kangaroo to make them feel involved from the very beginning. Millie and Mason would also announce their names and their zookeeper identities. We will then ask who knows what a zookeeper does, and if any students feel comfortable, we will welcome them to share their ideas. This will immediately encourage them to think about the topic of zoos and share their thoughts on them. We will then familiarise the participants with some small guidelines as what they can expect from us as facilitators. We will do this by identifying certain actions that we would imitate and what these actions might represent. In example, if me, Millie or Mason put our hand up in the air in a stop sign, this would signify to stop what you are doing. We will also explain that they can call us by our zookeeper names, and we will also make it clear that we are there to have fun with them and that they can ask for help at any moment, as we are aware it might feel daunting for youngsters. We will then sit down with them in a group so that they feel more comfortable, as we will be sitting on the same level as them, and we will excitingly express, "Us zookeepers need your help. We have a very important job to do to care for the animals. Will you help us?" Hopefully, this will excite the participants and will help them to feel involved. We would then ask the students to think of their own zookeeper name by saying, "If you're going to become a zookeeper, you'll need a zookeeper name just like ours." These zookeeper names will be named after animals. Therefore, as facilitators, we will sit and assist the students in thinking of possible animals that they might like to be named after. If the students are struggling to think of any names, we will try to encourage them by asking about what their favourite animals might be, or animals that they may have seen before at the zoo or on a favourite movie, example Madagascar, as there's lots of animals on that film. We will then provide sticky labels for the children to write their zookeeper names on the label and stick it onto their top so that everyone can see their zookeeper identities. Due to the students being quite young, if they struggle to write the animal names onto the label, me, Millie and Mason will be there to help and offer to write it for them. We will also stress that they don't need to worry if they spell any animal names wrong, if some students feel independent and want to have a go at writing it themselves. Due to health and safety reasons, the introduction will also be a useful time to make participants aware that I am pregnant. I will explain this through the use of animals to help them to understand. In example, I might say, "I am carrying a baby in my tummy, so we need to be extra careful. Kangaroos also carry children in their tummy." This will again reiterate the theme of zoos and animals whilst making it clear to the students about, of course, having to be careful around me. Warm-up exercises. Once all students have a zookeeper name, we will then continue the workshop onto warm-up exercises. Firstly, we will ask all students to stand up and walk around the space freely. One of the facilitators, example Melissa, might announce the rules of this exercise whilst Millie and Mason demonstrate first to help the students understand the task. Alternatively, they might join in with the students to act as a demonstration and to encourage the students to join in and feel confident. As the participants walk around the space, I will begin by asking, "How would you walk if you were the animal on your name tag?" I might then join in with the students to encourage them to physically adapt their walk or their stance to how their animal on their zookeeper label would walk. The facilitators would perform these walks exaggeratively to encourage the students to feel silly and to encourage them to avoid being shy. Hopefully this will encourage them to feel like they can join in more. If any students are feeling particularly shy or they are struggling to think of physical movement ideas to match their animals, the facilitators might walk up and demonstrate that animal to them first, so that the student feels comfortable to do it with them and not on their own. Occasionally, I would then signify the stop signal with my hand before asking the same question but with different animals. In example, how would you walk if you were a penguin? This exercise will help the students to have fun and be silly, whilst also encouraging them to consider character traits of different animals. We will continue this exercise for around 5 minutes. Due to health and safety reasons, this exercise will require a large amount of space, in example a school hall, to ensure that the exercise doesn't become overcrowded. We will also ensure that the floor space is cleared beforehand to avoid any hazardous objects which may cause falls. Additionally, if some students have walking difficulties, as facilitators we can cater this exercise to their needs. In example, they could change their posture, stance or facial expressions instead of walking around the space, and we would do this with them so that they don't feel like they are missing out. If this exercise becomes slightly flat or overly energetic, then we would offer a second alternative warm-up exercise to bring the focus back to the point. The same rules would apply for this exercise. However, Mason would be asking in a similar manner, how would you sound if? Asking students to imitate sounds that the chosen animal would make. An example, he might say, how would you sound if you were a tiger? He would also be able to control the level of sound during this activity through the signification of lowering his hand to lower the volume or raising his hand to increase the volume. We would help the students to understand this by doing it with them to encourage them to lower or heighten the tone. To motivate the students throughout the whole exercise, the facilitators would praise the participants to make them feel positive and proud of their work. Some comments might include, wow, that is a very good impression, or whoa, look at that tiger. This might also cause the students to feel amused and enjoy the experience, as well as learning about different characteristics that different animals can have. First activity. After the warm-up exercises, we would then carry out a larger exercise for around 20 minutes. We would begin this activity by sitting in a circle to allow the students to feel part of the group. To bring the energy levels to a point of focus, we would start by calmly asking some questions about the topic, so about zoos and endangered animals. These questions might include, has anyone been to a zoo before? Or, does anyone know of any endangered animals? To encourage the students to think more about the topic. We would then explain some facts about the importance of zoos and how they can benefit endangered animals by showing them some colourful posters with lots of pictures on, which we made beforehand. This will keep the students interested, whilst also giving them a small insight to the importance of the topic and how it affects society today, therefore making it more educational. Millie would then read aloud a short story that me, Mason and Millie would have prepared beforehand. This story would involve a scenario where some zoo animals might find themselves in danger. Example, a man was trying to wrongly free them from the zoo, and the zookeepers would come along to save them, the animals, and take them back to the zoo. We would also demonstrate the consequences of the wrong behaviour by the man. Example, the man might go to jail to show that his actions were wrong. This will hopefully show the difference between right and wrong behaviour. We would then have one facilitator, Melissa, who would act as the narrative. Her responsibility is to try to encourage the students to want to get up and involved in the exercise, reassuring all students that they will not be judged and giving positive comments to try to motivate them, without making them feel forced to do so. She will also be in charge of narrating the story. Meanwhile, the other facilitators will then enter the middle of the circle and ask if any students feel comfortable to get up and reenact this short story by becoming the characters, the objects and the places within the story. The facilitators might do a version of it first to ease the participants' nerves, allowing them to watch and therefore feel more confident to join in afterwards. If at any point the behaviour of the scene becomes too energetic or confusing, Melissa, as the narrative, has the power to shout "whoosh" whilst doing a spinning action. This would signify that all characters reenacting in that scene at that time must return to the circle before a new group of students would have a go. This would allow us to be able to maintain and keep the behaviour of the group under control. It would also allow all students to have the opportunity to get involved and participate within the scenes. Furthermore, due to the group of the participants being quite a large number, we will describe the environment of the scene in detail. This will allow the students to act as objects or things to make up the environment in the scene. Example, a tree. This will give more opportunity for students to get involved, perhaps for those students who don't feel comfortable talking in the scene. This activity, inspired by the Royal Shakespeare Company, will inspire imagination, allowing the students to present their different perceptions of scenes and characters in the story. This activity will allow the students to act as different characters or animals regardless of gender, expand their skills in confidence whilst performing, and also have fun, allowing them to be silly but also being creative at the same time. Additionally, students can feel more interested in the story as they might remember or recognise certain actions from the scenes acted out, which causes them to take more notice and to engage more within the story. This would mean that they would have a more physical muscle memory connection to the story. It will also allow the students to connect emotionally with the characters to understand the emotions that they may have felt during that scene and why. After each scene, we will encourage the remaining students who were watching and who weren't in that scene to applaud the students who acted, therefore encouraging the students to experience a sense of achievement and also encouraging other students who weren't in that scene to want to experience that sense of proud and achievement, also hopefully encouraging them to want to get involved. If for any reason there are any students who really don't feel comfortable to get up and act in any scene, Melissa might then take it upon her responsibility to go over and sit with them so they don't feel pushed out. And she may also ask if they would like to help her narrate the story. An example, if that child can't read, she might read out a sentence of the narration of the story, and the student might then repeat it out loud to the rest of the students reenacting the story, therefore still helping them to feel involved and included without having to get up and perform. For this exercise, we would need to ensure that we have a large clear space clear of any hazards, in example bags on the floor or anything like that, to avoid students falling over or hurting themselves.